My wife wanted to be best friends. I guess she forgot that best friends don't usually spend their lunch breaks in hotel rooms with married coworkers. "Nate, we need to talk," Julia said, perched on the edge of our expensive leather couch like she was about to bolt. Her perfectly manicured fingers twisted her wedding ring, a habit I'd noticed more frequently over the past month. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been troubleshooting network issues for my tech support team. "Let me guess. You want a divorce, but you're going to frame it as something that benefits both of us." Julia's practiced smile faltered for just a second. "That's not... Okay, maybe we should approach this differently. I think we've grown apart, and I believe we'd be happier as friends. Really good friends." "Best friends," I said, closing the laptop slowly. "The kind who split mortgage payments and utilities but sleep in separate beds." "Exactly," she brightened, thinking she'd won me over. "We could be like those modern couples who..." "Who what? Who pretend their marriage isn't over because one of them is too cowardly to file papers?" The apartment felt smaller suddenly, all chrome and glass and expensive mistakes. Julia had decorated it 3 years ago, when her promotion to senior HR director at Meridian Corp came through. Everything was sharp angles and cold surfaces, just like this conversation. "I'm not being cowardly," she said, standing up and smoothing her pencil skirt. "I'm being practical. We both know this isn't working, but we don't have to be enemies. We can support each other through this transition. Support each other, right?" I'd been supporting Julia through a lot of transitions lately. Her yoga retreats, her new wardrobe, her sudden interest in staying late at the office, all while my own salary as a mid-level IT manager barely covered half our monthly expenses. "And what does Eliot think about this arrangement?" I asked. Julia's face went pale, then flushed red. "I don't know what you mean." "Eliot Parker, your coworker, the guy who's been texting you at midnight and sending you flowers from a secret admirer. See? That Eliot." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried a different approach. Even if I was seeing someone, which I'm not saying I am, that doesn't change the fact that we could handle this like adults. I stood up, walked to the kitchen island that separated our living space, and leaned against it. "So, let me understand this. You want to break up our marriage, keep living together, split expenses, and maintain the appearance of being close friends while you openly date your married coworker. When you put it like that, it sounds insane. Because it is insane, Julia." She crossed her arms, and I recognized the pose. It was her negotiation stance, the one she used in HR meetings when someone challenged her authority. "I think you're being unnecessarily hostile about this. Most people would appreciate having an amicable separation." "Most people don't ask their spouse to become their roommate and emotional support system while they explore other relationships." "Fine," she said, her voice taking on that clipped professional tone. "If you want to be difficult about this, I can always move out. But I thought you'd prefer to keep things stable, for both our sakes." There it was, the threat wrapped in concern. Julia knew I couldn't afford the apartment alone, and she knew I knew it. She also knew that her mother, Mrs. Copeland, would blame me entirely if Julia had to move back home or find some cramped studio apartment. I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, standing in our living room in her power suit, checking her phone for what was probably the 15th time in 10 minutes. She was beautiful in that polished corporate way that had first attracted me 8 years ago. But now all I could see was the calculation behind her green eyes. "Okay," I said finally. "Okay? Sure, let's be best friends. Can't wait to hear all about your dating adventures over morning coffee." Julia smiled, the real one this time, not the practiced version. "I knew you'd understand. This is going to be so much better for both of us. You'll see." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I'm meeting Tamara for drinks after work. Don't wait up." After she left, I sat in our silent apartment and wondered how long it would take her to realize that best friends don't usually pay for their friends' half of the mortgage, utilities, and grocery bills while getting nothing in return except front-row seats to their romantic drama. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Rachel. How did it go? I told her about my suspicions regarding Julia and Eliot 2 weeks ago. Rachel, never one to sugarcoat things, had suggested I hire a private investigator. I'd laughed it off then, but now... I typed back, "We're best friends now." What the hell does that mean? It means I'm about to get a very expensive education in what Julia Bishop really thinks of me. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, finally. "Want me to come over with pizza and beer?" Rain check. I need to think. What I needed was a plan. Julia thought she could have her cake and eat it too. keep me around for financial and emotional support while she played house with her married boyfriend. She'd always been good at manipulating situations to her advantage, but she'd made one crucial miscalculation. She'd forgotten that I was the one who managed all our digital accounts, handled our social media presence, and maintained relationships with our mutual friends and her family. She'd forgotten that being someone's best friend meant having access to their entire life, and she'd definitely forgotten that the quiet, accommodating husband she'd been taking for granted for the past 3 years had once been the guy who'd hacked into our high school's computer system to change his grades, not because he was failing, but because he was bored. I opened my laptop and started making a list. If Julia wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real game looked like. 2 weeks into our best friendship, Julia had already borrowed $300 for a spa weekend, asked me to cover her car payment because she was a little short this month, and spent 45 minutes on Tuesday night describing her complicated feelings about some unnamed person at work. "It's just so confusing," she said, curled up on the couch in yoga pants and one of my old college sweatshirts. "I mean, he's everything I thought I wanted, but there are complications." "Complications like his wife?" I asked, not looking up from my tablet where I was reviewing network security reports. Julia paused mid-sip of the wine I'd bought. "I never said he was married." "You didn't have to. Married men are always complicated. Single men are just unavailable, commitment-phobic, or wrong for you. But married men, they're complicated." She set down her wine glass with a sharp clink. "You know, for someone who agreed to be my friend, you're being pretty judgmental." "Best friend," I corrected, "and best friends are supposed to give honest advice. So here's mine. Married men don't leave their wives for the other woman. They just don't. 97% of the time, they string along their girlfriend for months or years, then eventually end it to work on their marriage." "Where did you get that statistic?" "Made it up, but I bet I'm not wrong." Julia grabbed her wine and stalked off to what used to be our bedroom. "I'm going to bed. Some of us have important meetings tomorrow." I waited until I heard the shower running, then picked up her phone from the coffee table. She'd never changed her passcode, our anniversary date, which seemed ironic now. Scrolling through her messages took about 30 seconds to confirm what I already knew. Eliot Parker was indeed married, indeed Julia's coworker, and indeed sending her messages that would make a romance novelist blush. He was also, based on his profile picture, exactly the type of guy Julia had always claimed to find boring. Tall, conventionally handsome, and clearly spending significant money on personal training and teeth whitening. What was more interesting were the messages between Julia and her friend Tamara from work. Apparently, the entire HR department knew about the affair, and several people had money riding on whether Eliot would actually leave his wife. $20 says he bails by Christmas, Tamara had written just yesterday. "You're wrong," Julia had replied. "He's different. You should see how he looks at me." "That's what they all say, honey. But Gina's pregnant." I stared at that message for a long moment. Gina must be Eliot's wife. And if she was pregnant, that added a whole new dimension to this situation that Julia apparently didn't know about yet. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Copeland, Julia's mother. "Nate, dear, could you help me move some furniture this weekend? Julia mentioned you weren't busy these days." Not busy. As if being separated from her daughter meant I'd suddenly developed abundant free time and an eagerness to spend it doing manual labor for a woman who'd never liked me. I texted back, "Sorry, I have plans this weekend." The response came immediately. "What plans?" "Personal ones." 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before she finally sent, "I'll call Julia." Perfect. Let her call Julia. Let Julia explain to her mother why her soon-to-be ex-husband was no longer available for furniture moving, grocery shopping, and the dozen other tasks Mrs. Copeland had assigned to me over the years. The shower stopped running. I put Julia's phone back exactly where she'd left it and returned to my tablet. When she emerged from the bedroom 20 minutes later in silk pajamas that I'd bought her for Valentine's Day, I didn't look up. "Nate? Yeah? Are you really okay with this arrangement? Because if you're going to be passive-aggressive about it, maybe we should reconsider." I set down the tablet and looked at her. Even without makeup, with her hair damp and her face flushed from the hot shower, she was stunning. For a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. Then I remembered the messages on her phone. "I'm fine with it," I said. "Just adjusting to the new dynamic. It takes time to figure out boundaries." "What kind of boundaries?" "Well, for instance, I'm not available to help your mother move furniture this weekend." Julia's expression shifted from concerned to annoyed. "She asked you for one small favor." She asked her former son-in-law for a favor. But I'm not that anymore, am I? I'm your best friend. and best friends can say no when they are not available. You're being petty. Oh, I'm being honest. There's a difference. Julia opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. Fine, I'll help her myself. Great. I'm sure Eliot won't mind you spending your Saturday moving a dining room set instead of meeting him at whatever hotel you've been using. The color drained from her face. How do you? Julia, you're not as subtle as you think you are. You come home smelling like cologne I don't wear, you've been doing laundry more often, and you've started buying lingerie from stores that don't send catalogs to our address. She sat down heavily in the chair across from me. I didn't want you to find out like this. Find out what? That my best friend is having an affair with a married man whose wife is pregnant? Julia's eyes went wide. How did you know about Gina? I shrugged. Lucky guess, but thanks for confirming it. For the first time since she'd proposed this arrangement, Julia looked genuinely uncomfortable. It's not what you think. I think you're having an affair with a married man who's about to become a father, while asking me to subsidize your life and provide emotional support. What part am I getting wrong? The part where you pretend to care, she snapped. You've been checked out of this marriage for months. Don't act like you're hurt now. She wasn't entirely wrong. I had been checked out, but not for the reasons she thought. I'd been checked out because living with Julia had become like being a supporting character in someone else's story. Everything revolved around her job, her needs, her schedule, her friends. You're right, I said. I'm not hurt. I'm just trying to understand the rules of this new friendship. The rules are simple. We're adults who care about each other but aren't romantically involved anymore. We support each other through this transition period until we can both move on to whatever comes next. And what comes next for you? Eliot leaves his pregnant wife and you two live happily ever after? Julia stood up abruptly. I don't have to justify my choices to you. No, you don't. But if we're really best friends, you might want to prepare yourself for disappointment. Men like Eliot don't leave their wives, especially not when there's a baby coming. They just don't. She stormed back to the bedroom and slammed the door. I heard her talking on the phone in low, urgent tones, probably calling Tamara to complain about my attitude. I picked up my tablet and opened a new document. Time to start documenting this friendship properly. Julia wanted to play games, but she'd forgotten something important about me. I'd always been better at games than she was. The first anonymous message arrived on a Thursday morning, while Julia was in the shower getting ready for work. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. You deserve better. A friend. Attached was a video that made my coffee taste like ash. Julia and Eliot in the parking garage of her office building, pressed against his silver Audi, kissing like teenagers. The timestamp showed it was from yesterday, around lunchtime. I watched it twice, then deleted the message. Whoever had sent it was right. I did deserve better. But what they didn't know was that I'd already figured that out. Julia emerged from the bedroom in a navy blue dress that I'd never seen before, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. New dress? I asked. This old thing? I've had it forever. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. I'll be late tonight. Team building dinner. With Eliot? She paused with her hand on the doorknob. With my entire department, Nate. Not everything is about him. After she left, I opened my laptop and did some research. Eliot Parker was easy to find on social media. He posted frequently about his workouts, his car, and his beautiful wife Gina. The most recent photo of Gina showed a woman with kind eyes and a small but noticeable baby bump captioned, "Can't wait to meet our little one." It had been posted 3 days ago. Eliot had liked it and commented with a heart emoji right around the time he was sending Julia messages about meeting her at the Marriott downtown. I spent my lunch break driving to Julia's office building. The parking garage was exactly as I'd seen in the video. Concrete and shadows, with plenty of blind spots where someone could park and record without being noticed. Eliot's Audi was there, parked in a spot marked E. Parker near the elevator. I walked around the car slowly, noting details. Custom rims, tinted windows, a small dent on the passenger side door. The license plate read Elite 1, which seemed about right for someone who thought sleeping with coworkers while his wife was pregnant made him sophisticated. My phone buzzed. Rachel, texting from her job at the veterinary clinic. Mom called, says Julia's mom is spreading rumors about you being difficult lately. I texted back. Define difficult. Apparently you refuse to help with furniture and you're being unsupportive during Julia's difficult time. Her difficult time? Mom didn't elaborate. Want me to dig? No need. I know what her difficult time is. That evening, Julia came home at almost midnight, slightly drunk and overly cheerful. The team building was amazing, she announced, kicking off her heels in the entryway. We went to that new place downtown, then some people wanted to keep the party going, so we hit a few bars. Sounds fun. How's Eliot's wife doing? Julia froze halfway through removing her earrings. What? Gina, his wife. I saw on social media that she's pregnant. That must make things complicated for him. I wouldn't know, Julia said carefully. We don't really discuss personal matters. Right, just professional team building. Got it. She studied my face for a long moment, then shook her head. You're acting strange lately. Strange how? I don't know, different. Like you're planning something. I smiled and closed my laptop. I'm not planning anything, Jules. I'm just adjusting to being your best friend instead of your husband. It's a learning process. The next morning, I put my plan into motion. It started small, a sticky note on the windshield of Eliot's Audi that read, Your wife deserves better, in block letters. Nothing threatening, nothing that could be traced back to me. Just a friendly reminder from an anonymous concerned citizen. Over the next week, I escalated gradually. A bag of fish sauce accidentally spilled near his car. Saran wrap carefully placed under his oil cap. Not enough to cause damage, but enough to create a mess when he checked his oil. Photos of each incident, posted anonymously to the Neighborhood Watch app with captions like, Weird vandalism in the Meridian Corp parking garage. Anyone else seeing this? The responses were exactly what I'd hoped for. People love a mystery, and they love justice even more. Within days, someone had identified Eliot's car and connected it to his social media profiles. From there, it was a short leap to finding photos of Gina and realizing that the vandalism might not be so random after all. Someone's targeting that guy with the fancy Audi, one commenter wrote. Maybe his wife found out about his lunch meetings? What lunch meetings? Someone else asked. And just like that, the conversation took on a life of its own. People started sharing stories about seeing Eliot with some brunette at various restaurants around town. Someone posted a photo they'd taken at the Marriott bar showing Eliot and Julia at a corner table, heads close together. Julia noticed the change in atmosphere at work immediately. People are acting weird around me, she complained over dinner on Friday night, like they're watching me or something. Weird how? Just weird. Tamara says there are rumors going around, but she won't tell me what kind. I kept my expression neutral while cutting my chicken. Office rumors are usually nothing. People get bored and start gossiping about anything. Maybe. She pushed food around her plate without eating much. Eliot thinks someone's been messing with his car. Really? What kind of messing? Vandalism. Stupid pranks. He thinks it might be someone from work who has a grudge against him. Any idea who? Julia shook her head. He's pretty well liked. I can't imagine anyone wanting to target him specifically. I nodded sympathetically while mentally planning my next move. If Julia thought Eliot was well liked, she was about to get a very educational lesson in how quickly public opinion could shift. My phone buzzed with another anonymous message. Check his Instagram stories from last night. This time, the message included screenshots of Eliot at a bar with Tamara, not Julia. The photos showed them laughing, touching, clearly more than just coworkers grabbing drinks. I looked across the table at Julia, who was still picking at her dinner and worrying about office rumors. She had no idea that her complicated relationship was about to become a lot more complicated. Everything okay? She asked, noticing my expression. Fine, I said, putting my phone face down on the table. Just work stuff. But it wasn't fine. It was perfect. The slideshow malfunction happened during Meridian Corp's monthly all-hands meeting, and I had absolutely nothing to do with it. At least, that's what I told myself as I watched the chaos unfold from my laptop at home, courtesy of the company's live stream for remote employees and partners. Julia had mentioned the meeting that morning, complaining about having to present the quarterly HR metrics to the entire company. It's just going to be boring charts and graphs, she'd said, adjusting her blazer in the mirror. I don't know why they insist on making such a big production out of everything. The presentation started normally enough. Julia looked professional and confident as she walked through attendance rates, employee satisfaction scores, and training completion percentages. Then she clicked to advance to the next slide, and instead of a chart showing retention rates, the screen filled with a photo of Eliot and Tamara at the bar from 2 nights ago. The conference room went silent. Julia clicked frantically, trying to advance past the image, but the next slide was worse. Eliot and Julia themselves, taken through the window of the Marriott restaurant, clearly on a date. Technical difficulties, Julia announced, her voice tight with panic. Let me just... But the slides kept advancing on their own. More photos of Eliot with different women, screenshots of flirty text messages, a photo of his vandalized car with the caption Karma spray-painted on the windshield, something that definitely hadn't been there when I'd driven past that morning. Someone in the back of the room started laughing, then someone else. Within moments, the entire meeting had devolved into whispers and barely suppressed giggles. "I apologize for this technical issue," the CEO announced, stepping forward. "We'll reconvene once IT has resolved the problem." The stream cut out, leaving me staring at a blank screen and wondering who had orchestrated such a perfectly timed public humiliation. It was brilliant, ruthless, and completely beyond anything I could have managed with my limited access to the company's systems. My phone rang. Julia, calling from what sounded like a bathroom stall based on the echo. "Someone hacked the presentation," she whispered urgently. "They had photos, Nate. Private photos of me and Eliot? How did you know it was Eliot?" "Lucky guess. Are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay. This is a disaster. HR is launching an investigation. People are talking. My career could be over." I made sympathetic noises while privately marveling at the thoroughness of whoever had put together that slideshow. They'd managed to include evidence I hadn't even known existed, which meant someone else had been watching Julia and Eliot for much longer than I had. "Have you talked to Eliot?" I asked. "He's not answering his phone. Tamara says he left right after the presentation ended." "Interesting. So Eliot was the type to run when things got complicated. That seemed about right for someone who thought he could juggle a pregnant wife and multiple affairs without consequences." "I'm sure it'll blow over," I said. "These things always do." "Will they? Because right now it feels like everyone in the building knows my personal business." "Well, you did want to be more open about your relationship status." "Not like this, Nate. Not as some kind of office scandal." After she hung up, I sat in our quiet apartment and tried to process what I'd witnessed. Someone was playing a much bigger game than I was, and they were playing it better. The question was whether they were an ally or just someone with their own agenda. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Enjoyed the show?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Who is this?" "Someone who thinks you deserve better than being Julia's safety net." "What do you want?" "To watch her learn that actions have consequences. Stick around, the best part is coming." Before I could respond, another message appeared. "Check Eliot's wife's Instagram." Gina Parker had posted a new photo an hour ago. It showed her sitting in what appeared to be a lawyer's office, her hands folded over her pregnant belly, with the caption, "Sometimes the hardest decisions are the right ones. Thank you to everyone who's reached out with support during this difficult time." The comments were a mix of heart emojis and messages like, "You deserve so much better," and "Stay strong, mama." Clearly word about Eliot's extracurricular activities had reached his wife, probably thanks to the very public slideshow presentation. Julia came home that evening looking like she'd aged 5 years in one day. Her makeup was smudged, her hair disheveled, and she moved through the apartment like she was sleepwalking. "Bad day?" I asked from the kitchen, where I was making pasta for dinner. "The worst." She collapsed onto the couch without even removing her shoes. "They're launching a formal investigation into inappropriate workplace relationships. I could be fired, Nate, or demoted, or transferred." "What about Eliot?" "What about him? He's married to someone else. I'm the one who looks like a home wrecker." I brought her a plate of food and sat down across from her. "Are you a home wrecker?" She looked up sharply. "That's a horrible thing to ask." "It's a fair question. His wife is pregnant, and you've been seeing him for months. What would you call it?" "I would call it complicated. Eliot told me his marriage was already over. He said they were just staying together until after the baby was born." "And you believed him?" "Why wouldn't I believe him?" I pulled out my phone and showed her Gina's Instagram post from that morning. A photo of her and Eliot at what appeared to be a doctor's appointment, both of them smiling and holding an ultrasound image. The caption read, 20 weeks and counting. So grateful for my amazing husband and best friend." Julia stared at the photo for a long moment, then set down her fork. "When was this posted?" "This morning, about 2 hours before your presentation." "But he told me—" She trailed off, then shook her head. "He told me they weren't sleeping in the same room anymore." "Julia, men lie to their mistresses. It's like the first rule of having an affair." "Don't call me that." "What would you prefer? Side piece? Other woman?" She stood up abruptly, her dinner untouched. "I don't have to listen to this." "No, you don't, but you might want to start thinking about damage control. Because if someone was able to hack your work presentation, they probably have access to a lot more than just photos." Julia paused in the doorway to the bedroom. "What do you mean?" "I mean, whoever did this isn't done yet. This feels like the opening act, not the finale." She disappeared into the bedroom, and I heard her on the phone again, probably calling Tamara or trying to reach Eliot. But based on what I'd seen today, I suspected Eliot was going to be very busy dealing with his own problems. My anonymous correspondent had been right about one thing: the show was just getting started, and Julia was about to learn that being the star of someone else's revenge plot was a lot less fun than she'd imagined. The Best Friends Forever party was Julia's idea, which made what happened next feel like poetic justice. "I want to show everyone that we're handling this maturely," she announced on Sunday morning, 3 days after the presentation disaster. "We'll invite all our mutual friends, prove that we're still close, and maybe it'll help rehabilitate my image." She'd spent the weekend in damage control mode, calling friends and family to explain that the slideshow incident was the result of a malicious hacker, and that her relationship with Eliot had been blown out of proportion. Most people had been polite but non-committal, which only made her more determined to prove that her life wasn't falling apart. "A party seems like a lot of work," I said, not looking up from my laptop where I was pretending to read emails. "It's not work, if it serves a purpose. Besides, you always liked hosting parties." That was true. I had enjoyed our dinner parties and game nights back when we actually functioned as a couple, but those events had been about bringing people together, not about managing Julia's public image. "Okay," I said finally. "Let's have a party." Julia smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all week. "Really? You'll help me plan it?" "Of course. We're best friends, right?" She leaned over and kissed my cheek, a gesture that felt both familiar and completely foreign. "Thank you. This is going to be perfect." I spent the next 3 days helping Julia plan what she envisioned as her social rehabilitation. We sent invitations to 30 people, planned a menu, bought decorations, and cleaned the apartment until it sparkled. Julia threw herself into the preparations with manic energy, as if the success of one party could erase the humiliation of that slideshow. What she didn't know was that I'd been planning my own version of the evening's entertainment. The party started well. People arrived on time, complimented the food, and made polite conversation about work, weather, and weekend plans. Julia moved through the crowd like a politician, laughing too loudly and touching people's arms while she talked. She was performing the role of a woman whose life was perfectly under control. "She seems good," my sister Rachel murmured, appearing at my elbow with a glass of wine. "Considering." "Considering what?" "Considering her boyfriend's wife filed for divorce yesterday and named Julia specifically in the paperwork." I turned to stare at Rachel. "How do you know that?" "Tamara told Mom, who told me. Apparently it's all over social media. Gina Parker isn't going quietly." I pulled out my phone and found Gina's Instagram account. Her most recent post was a photo of legal documents with the caption, "When someone destroys your family, you have two choices: stay silent or speak up. I'm choosing to speak up. My husband's affair with Julia Bishop from his workplace has ended our marriage, but it won't end my voice." The post had over 200 comments and had been shared dozens of times. Julia's name was being dragged through the mud by complete strangers, and she had no idea. "Does she know?" Rachel asked, nodding toward Julia. "I don't think so." "Are you going to tell her?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Julia rushed to answer it, probably hoping for more guests to witness her successful party. Instead, she opened the door to find Eliot Parker standing in the hallway, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," he said loudly enough for half the party to hear. Julia's face went pale. "This isn't a good time." "I don't care. My life is falling apart because of you." "Because of me?" Julia's voice rose. "I'm not the one who lied about being separated." "You knew I was married. You knew Gina was pregnant. You didn't care." The party had gone completely silent. 30 people stood frozen with drinks in their hands, watching Julia's personal drama unfold in her living room. "You told me your marriage was over," Julia hissed, trying to keep her voice down. "My marriage is over now, thanks to your little slideshow stunt." "I didn't have anything to do with that." Eliot laughed bitterly. Right. It was just a coincidence that someone had photos of us together." "It was. Someone's been stalking us, taking pictures." "Someone like your husband?" Every eye in the room turned to me. I set down my beer and walked over to where they were standing. "Actually," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I didn't take any photos, but I did enjoy watching them." Julia stared at me. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and opened the video I'd received weeks ago, the one of Julia and Eliot in the parking garage. "Someone's been documenting your relationship for months. They've been sending me updates." "Who?" "I have no idea, but they seem to know you better than you know yourself." I looked around the room at our friends and family, all of whom were hanging on every word. For instance, did everyone know that Julia asked me to be her best friend instead of getting divorced? She wanted to keep living together, splitting expenses, while she dated her married coworker. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Copeland, who had arrived fashionably late, looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "And did you know," I continued, "that she borrowed money from me to pay for hotels where she could meet Eliot? Or that she asked me to cover her car payment last month because she was spending her salary on new clothes to impress him?" "Nate, stop," Julia whispered. "Stop what? I thought we were being honest now. Isn't that what best friends do?" Eliot stepped forward. "Look, man, I never meant for any of this to happen." "Really? You never meant to cheat on your pregnant wife? It was an accident?" "It's complicated." "No, it's not." I turned to address the room. "It's actually very simple. Eliot wanted to have an affair, and Julia wanted to help him. The only complicated part was convincing me to subsidize it." The silence was deafening. Then Tamara, who had been uncharacteristically quiet all evening, spoke up. "Actually, there's something else everyone should know." All eyes turned to her. She looked nervous but determined, like someone who'd been carrying a secret for too long. "Eliot wasn't just seeing Julia," she said. "He was seeing me too, and probably others." Julia's face went white. "What?" "I'm sorry, Jules. I wanted to tell you, but I thought maybe you knew and didn't care." Eliot started backing toward the door. "I don't have to listen to this." "Yes, you do," said a voice from the hallway. Everyone turned to see a woman I didn't recognize standing in the doorway. She was petite, blonde, and visibly pregnant. It took me a moment to realize this was Eliot Parker. "Hello, Eliot," she said calmly. "I thought I might find you here." The room was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. "Gina," Eliot stammered, "what are you doing here?" "I came to meet the woman who helped destroy my marriage." She looked directly at Julia. "You must be Julia Bishop." Julia nodded mutely. "I wanted to see what you looked like," Gina continued. "I wanted to understand what kind of person knowingly has an affair with a married man whose wife is pregnant." "I didn't know you were pregnant at first," Julia said weakly. "But you knew I existed. You knew he was married." He said his marriage was over. "Yes, I know. He says that to all of them." Gina's voice was steady, controlled. "Did you really think you were special? That you were different from the others?" The room was spinning with revelations. I looked around at the faces of our friends and family, all of whom were witnessing Julia's complete social destruction in real time. "Others?" Julia whispered. "Oh yes, there have been several others. Tamara was just the most recent." Gina smiled coldly. "My lawyer has documentation of all of them. It's amazing what a private investigator can uncover when someone's spouse is stupid enough to use company email for their affairs." Everything clicked into place. The anonymous messages, the perfectly timed slideshow, the comprehensive documentation of Eliot's infidelities. It had all been orchestrated by Eliot Parker and her divorce attorney. "You," I said, looking at Gina. "You're the one who's been sending me information?" She nodded. "I thought you deserved to know what your wife was really doing, and I thought she deserved to learn what kind of man she'd chosen over her marriage." Julia sank into a chair, the weight of her humiliation finally crushing her performance of control. Around the room, guests were quietly gathering their things and heading for the door. No one wanted to be part of this anymore. Mrs. Copeland approached me as the crowd thinned out. "Nate, I had no idea." "It's okay, Mrs. Copeland." Julia made her choices. She looked at her daughter, who was still sitting in stunned silence. "What happens now?" I looked around our apartment, the chrome and glass surfaces that had never felt like home, the expensive furniture that we'd bought to impress people, the carefully curated life that had been built on lies and manipulation. "Now Julia gets what she wanted," I said. "She gets to be single and date whoever she wants. She just has to do it without my financial support." As the last guests filed out, leaving only Julia, Eliot, Gina, and me in the wreckage of the party, Gina turned to her husband. "The divorce papers will be served tomorrow," she told him. "I suggest you find somewhere else to stay tonight. And Julia?" She looked at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife. "You're welcome to him, but just remember, if he'll cheat with you, he'll cheat on you." After they left, Julia and I sat in our destroyed living room, surrounded by empty glasses and abandoned plates of food. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "For which part?" "All of it. The lying, the cheating, the humiliation, using you." I nodded. "I know you are." "Can we fix this?" I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 8 years, who had asked me to be her best friend while she destroyed our life together, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. "No," I said. "We can't. But that's okay, because I'm finally ready to stop trying." Julia started to cry then, quiet tears that smeared her makeup and made her look younger and more vulnerable than she had in years. But I didn't comfort her. Best friends don't enable each other's worst impulses, and I was done being the supporting character in Julia's story. Instead, I started cleaning up the party, throwing away the remnants of our fake friendship and our real marriage, preparing for whatever came next. It was time to write my own story.